For many people who take a MOOC, the choice is not between taking a physical class in a US university and taking a MOOC. The choice is between no access to higher education or taking a MOOC. So for the millions of people around the world who have literally, for various reasons, no access to higher education, MOOCs are already a huge success. When you start comparing MOOCs with physically co-present education, then of course there are pluses and minuses. On the other hand, I would not pretend to claim that watching a video of me pretending to sit next to a student and talk to that student isn't the same as actually sitting next to that student. And one reason is, if a student's sitting next to me, if they don't understand something, they can grab my arm and say, "Professor, I don't understand that. Let's hear that again." That, of course, is absent. We have to make up for that. Ultimately, nothing is going to replace, in terms of quality, 4 or 5 students, maybe anything up to 7 or 8. Beyond 8 it gets to be too big, but 1 up to 7 or 8 students sitting together with the professor and going over material. That really is an essential for getting high quality education that really works, and that's not scalable. So one thing MOOCs do is provide this, what I sometimes call a textbook on steroids. You can take a MOOC and you can use that as a resource in a physical class. We're all used to the fact that when we give classes physically, we have a textbook. And that textbook is written in the voice of somebody else. Sometimes we use our own textbook, very often we use somebody else's. So we're used to the fact that there's already a second voice in the classroom. There's the instructor, and then there's the writer of the book. And if there are 2 people, that gives 2 voices. In thinking about the course in advance, I tried to think of making it possible that each individual lecture video could be used on its own without anything else, just as a resource. So a professor might actually just take part of one of my videos, download one of my videos, cut out a segment of it, and use it in class. That would mean they are viewing the MOOC not as a course, but as a resource, a multimedia resource. People learn about proofs and carrying out reasoning. Can they acquire the metacognitive skills required to solve a problem that's different from anything you've seen before, where you can't just take a method off the shelf? Can that be acquired over an internet connection? My suspicion is a student who simply takes a MOOC in their own room and doesn't talk to anybody else probably is not going to succeed. I mean, there'll be exceptions, but I think the odds are against it. A student who gets together with a group of other students, that goes on the course forums, that gets help from the community TAs, then I think there's a reasonable chance that they will be able to learn this material. We tend to have a feeling that our expertise cannot be captured in silicon, and sometimes that's correct, but it's not always correct. I simply don't know yet if my expertise at grading and helping people learn proofs, I don't know if that can't be captured acceptably well by a computer program. The broader question that this raises is, will people be put out of work? Will universities go out of business? And the answer is, people or universities that do not change as the landscape changes will be put out of work and they'll go out of business. But there's not going to be any less requirement for human expertise. And institutions and professors who are willing to adapt to the changes in technology and society will be just as much in demand in 10 years' time as they are now. But it's the ones that change that will be successful. One thing I think MOOCs may lead to, and I think there's a real possibility, is that the main credit that people get, the certificate they get, will not be offered by a university. Universities will offer education, and different organizations will offer accreditation. So yeah, I think a student who completes a MOOC has really worked very hard, and they've had a much more difficult task than a student who was in a physical class. Not least because they don't have other students and a professor to help keep them going. I mean, in a small class, I can act as the athletics coach. I can keep their enthusiasm going. I can, sympathize with them when they're finding it difficult. If they can form a group where they have support psychologically they're much more likely to keep at the end of the course. If they're trying to do it on their own at home and they succeed, then that is something they should be really, really proud of. Overwhelmed when I saw the people who were on the team. I mean, this is a very talented and accomplished group of people. I mean, initially I thought it was probably a group of beginning graduate students, and then I looked at the list and I thought, wow, I'm certainly honoured and overwhelmed that a group with this degree of talent is devoting time to something which, at its heart, okay, so this is a big thing. I mean, I'm spending hundreds of hours on this, so I believe this is a big experiment. I don't know how it's going to end up. But it's kind of humbling to think that I'm sitting there in my apartment late at night when it's a bit quieter and I don't get disturbed by people in the other apartments, recording videos spontaneously, and then to find that there's a highly talented group like this spending more hours translating those spontaneous words is both it's humbling, but it's also very rewarding. So I'm very appreciative that you're doing this and bringing my nighttime thoughts from my apartment, making that available to the whole of the Portuguese-speaking world. That's really a pretty big deal.